Hello everyone and welcome back. Today, as you can see, we're going to build this Todo app with React.js. It's a really cool project and I try to put as much of cool features as possible. For example, here where you add a new task, let's say buy some milk, we can add a new task by both hitting an enter or clicking this button. So I can hit enter and we have a new task here. So if I click a task, let's say this one, like this video, it dims this task item and it adds this line. And as you can see, this animation, this is animated. So the line goes from here to there. And even this background color is animated, so it dims out. Another thing is that when I click on an item, I mark an item as done or not, this thing updates. So now it's 1 of 3 complete, keep it going. If I uncheck this one, it says 0 of 3 complete, try to do at least 1. If I mark everything as done, it says 3 of 3 complete, nice job for today. What else do we have here? If I'm done with all the tasks, I can remove them for the next day and add a new task, for example, test. Another, probably the most important feature is that everything is saved inside local storage. So even if I close the app or if I refresh, it still shows the same tasks. So I can add test 2 and I can refresh and it still shows those tasks. So we can add tasks by both hitting enter or this plus button. We can mark them as done with some cool animations. We can remove the tasks. We can change those messages. And another thing is that we can even rename the task. So if I click on the name here, I get an input and I can change the name for example, test 3, hit enter, and now it's saved. So if I refresh, it's still test 3. So yes, this is a really cool project. It differs from all other to-do lists, I think. And this is something you should try to build, and some kind of apps that are different from others. So yeah, a lot of features, a lot of cool functionality, a lot of things you are going to learn. Like in this tutorial, you're going to learn some basic React hooks like useEffect and the useState. You're also going to learn to use localStorage with React apps and also some cool CSS animations together with React state. So without further ado, let's jump into the code. Alright, so as always, we start with an empty directory here in my editor. And here on the right side, I have an empty Chrome browser. So in my editor, I will open a terminal and here I will create a new React app. So I can do npx create React. And I want to create this app in the current directory. So I will use dot here, enter, and now it's installing all React dependencies. All right, so now everything is installed. As you can see, now we got this node modules, public and source, and also other files here. And now we can do npm start, and it opened a new tab in our Chrome browser with this localhost 3000 and the preview of our app. Right, so we are going to start by going to source and removing all of this because we are not going to need this. Here inside app.js, we will remove everything. We will just leave an empty div like this. And we don't need this logo either, so I will remove it. And then here inside app.css, we have some styling. I will remove it as well. So I will just grab all of this and remove. All right, now back to app.js. And let's see. Now let's start by creating an HTML structure for our app. So first we are going to need a form to add the to-do tasks. So I'll put a form and I will remove this action and we'll only add an input. And then we need also a button. And for now, we'll just put a plus here inside this button. Maybe I will put it here before it. All right, so now we have our form. Now it would be nice to put it in a separate component. So inside source, I'll create new file and let's call this one task form.js, and I will copy this from app.js Now let's go to task form and let's create a component here. So let's do export default function task form, and it will return the thing that we have just copied. All right, now let's go back to app.js and let's remove this. And now let's add our component that we just created. So it's task form like this. And if you haven't noticed, it has been automatically imported for me, this component. So if this line didn't pop up for you, you need to add it manually. Right, so now nothing have changed inside our browser. I'll make it a little bigger, but maybe we can add also a placeholder for our input. So let's add placeholder that will say new task, or maybe your next task. Right, and now to make this input work with React, we need to add a state for this input. So let's do const and value set value equals useState, and the default will be an empty string. Maybe we can rename it from value and set value to something more specific. Let's say task name and set task name. Right, now for this input we need to set the value to task name, and now as you can see I cannot edit this input because we need to add on change, and I'll put it in separate rows so we can see this on change, and on change we get an event, and with this event we need to run set task name, and we need to set the value from the input. So let's do event target value. Yes, now I can add this input, so this works. Now let's go back to our app.js, and the next part of the structure that we need is actually a to-do task, to-do item. So basically it will be a div, and well, a div, so it will be like a row, and then we need like two parts. On the left side we will have a checkbox like this, input type checkbox, and on the right side we will have some kind of task name. So let's say it will be test task, yeah, something like this. But now first it would be good to put it as a separate component. So we'll cut it from here, and I will create a new file here, source new file, and let's say it will be just task.js, and here as always just export default task, and it will just return the thing that we have just cut it from. Oh sorry, I forgot function here. Yeah, now let's put our test task here inside app. So I will put task like this. Yeah, notice that this has been imported for me, so you probably need to add it manually. And we have our task here. So now if we just copy this and put it like 5 times, then we have 5 tasks. And well, now I think it would be nice to style it a little bit, so it will be prettier. So as you can see, we have some app CSS file that we can reuse. So I will open it and I will add some styling here. So let's do body, and I really like dark color, so it's easier for my eyes. So I will do background color, and let's pick I think I would do 17, 18, 1F. Yeah, so it's dark. Now the default color for the text will be, let's say AAA. Yeah, something like this. Now let's maybe style our form. So this part here that we add, we will add the tasks. All right, so first let's do form input of type text, and let's remove background none, and let's change the border to like 1 pixel solid, and maybe something like this, 20, 21 2D, so it will be a little brighter. Yeah, it's barely visible. Maybe I can make it bigger, 3 pixels, or maybe brighter. Let's do 30, 31, 3D. Yeah, something like this. I will make it also with rounded corners. So let's do border radius of, let's say 5 pixels. Yes, maybe more. Let's do 10. Yes. Now let's add some padding. So let's say it will have 5 pixels on the top and the bottom, and 4 pixels on the sides. Yes, that's better. maybe more pixels on the sides. Let's do 8. Yes, that will work. Now for the button, the form button, I want to start this plus button here. So I want to make it background color of React blue. So this will be like, it's 61 DAFB, like this. Let's remove the border. So let's do border 0. Yes. And now it would be nice to have this inside this border. So I think I will actually get this border from here. I will remove it from this input and I will remove this border. I will do border 0 and I will add this border to the form like this. And same with the border radius. I'll put it on the form and I will add some padding from the left side here. So let's say it will be 3 pixels, maybe more. Let's do 5. Yeah. And the input, as you can see, ends here, so we can make it, so we want to make it wider. So let's do width of, or maybe start with display block, and let's do width of 100%. But now, as you can see, this input ends outside of our form, and I think it's because we need to add on all elements, box sizing, border box. Yeah, now we got rid of this horizontal scroll bar. But now we want to put this input next to the button, and because our form has both this button and this input, we can do just display here to flex. Yes, and now the only problem is that our button got really big. So instead of doing this padding left on the form, we'll do just padding 5 pixels on every side. And from the input, we can get rid of this top and bottom padding. Yeah. And for the button, let's do rounded corners here. Let's do border radius of, let's say, 4 pixels, maybe more. Let's do 6. That looks good. And let's see, we will also add the cursor pointer. So we'll have this hand cursor when we hover on this button. All right. Now it would be nice to center everything. As you can see, this starts here and it ends somewhere here, and we want to make it centered. So let's see, our app sits inside this div, and I think maybe we can replace this div with main, like a main component that we can use with HTML. Now let's go to app CSS and let's style our main component here, main HTML element. So let's do maybe max width, and let's say it will be 200 or 300 pixels. So now, as you can see, it ends here, but let's do it centered. So margin 0 auto, now it's centered, but let's add some margin from the top and bottom, like 20 pixels. Yeah, so we'll have some spacing from the top. All right, now let's style our task. So our task looks like this, and I think maybe we can add some class name on this div, so it will be easier to style. Let's add the class name task, and now we can go back to our CSS. So let's start our div task, and let's see. Let's add the same background color that we have on this border. Let's see, it's this one, so we'll copy this, and let's add background color, and this. Now border radius of 10 pixels, same as we have on the form. Now let's add some padding, let's say 5 pixels, yes. And now let's add some spacing between every task. So let's add margin top on every of, I don't know, 5 pixels. Yeah, I think this will work. I think this color could be a little darker. So maybe let's try 20, 21, and 2D. Yeah, I think this will work. Or maybe, no, let's go back to this one. It's more visible. All right, and now we have those checkboxes. Those are default checkboxes from HTML, but I don't like them. I would like to have something prettier. So instead of having those, I will go to Font Awesome, and I will grab some icons here, and we can check for square, and let's select 3 fonts. As you can see here, we have square check and the square that we can use here. So let's pick this square, and I will copy this SVG code. So let's copy this. Now let's go back to our task.js and let's remove this checkbox. We have this SVG. Let's save it and let's see how it looks like. It shows an error, and this is because we get this HTML comment that we need to get rid of. So I will select this comment, I will remove it, save, and now we have this black box icon. To make it easier to style, I will put it inside a separate div with class name checkbox and unchecked, and I will put this SVG inside. Right, so we have this SVG, this black square inside this new div, checkbox, and extra class name unchecked. So we have two class names. And now let's also add another div with class names checkbox and checked. And let's also add a checked version of this square. So let's copy this SVG and let's put it inside. And we need to get rid of this comment. So I will select it from here and let's get rid of all this gray thing like this. Let's see, we have two checkboxes on each task. And first we need to make them smaller. So let's go back to app.css and let's style our SVG boxes. So div task. And for this SVG, those SVGs, we want to make it smaller. So let's do height of, I don't know, 20 pixels. Yes, that's much better. But now this and this is not in line. So let's try to put the display flex on the div task. Yeah, so now everything is in line. The problem is that everything sits to next to each other. So on this SVG, I will add a margin from the right side of, let's say, 10 pixels. Maybe that's too much. Let's do maybe 4. Yeah, that would be enough. We can also add some margin from the left side. Margin left of 4 pixels. Yes, why not? And or we can actually move this margin left to the padding. So let's remove this margin left and let's put it as a padding inside our task. So here, let's do 9 pixels on the side. Right, now let's see, we have our checkboxes. Now let's make them work. So to make our checkbox to work, I think it would be the best to put it as a separate component. So let's put a new component called checkbox.js. And here let's do export default function and checkbox. Let's do return. It will be a div, and now let's put our checkboxes inside this checkbox. And now we need to use this checkbox here. So let's do checkbox, and it still looks really bad. So let's fix it. First, we don't want to show both this and this, and instead we want to show only one, depending if it's checked or not. So our checkbox needs to have a state checked, and we need a function to change it. So let's do set checked, and it will be useState, and default will be false. All right. We may want to say to the checkbox from properties if it should be checked by default or not. So let's add a property here called default checked. It will be false. And here instead of false, let's do default checked. Oops, sorry, it should be like this. So it's default checked equals false. And now let's see. Now we want to show one of those two divs depending if checked is true or not. So the first one that is empty should be visible only if it's not checked. So if not checked, then and inside parentheses we can put this div. And now if it is checked, so let's do checked and let's do parentheses. Yeah, and let's put it here. Right, so now as you can see we have only one because the value of checked is false because it's the default value that we got inside state. But if we go to task and we change the checkbox default check to true, then nothing has changed. Well, it did change, sorry. We have it, so have it checked. So now, let's make it work. So let's go to our app.js and well, first we can get rid of those 4 and we can leave just 1 task. And let's see, we want to first fix the task form so we can save tasks to local storage. So let's say that inside our app we'll have a state with all tasks. So do tasks and set tasks, and it will be useState, and default will be an empty array. All right, and now we want to do that this task form can add tasks to our state. So let's add a property on this one. It will be called on submit, or maybe on add equals, and let's say it will be a task name here, and with this task name we will just run set tasks. Or maybe, you know what, we can add a prettier function here. Let's do function add task with a name, and when we run on add on the task form, it will have a name and it will run our function add task with this name. But because we have same param, and on add and add task we can do just add task without any parentheses. And when we run add task with a task name, what do we want to do? We want to update tasks. So let's do set tasks, and we want to put all previous tasks. So let's do previous. Let's use a function here. So we have previous values. So we want to return previous values, but we want to also to this array add this task name. So let's return this as a new array like this. So spread operator and array brackets. And let's also add another object with this name to be name. And this object will be our task. And the other thing will be done. That will be, let's do 0. So if it's 1, it will be, or maybe we can do just false. So it will be easier. We don't need to use numbers. All right. So this is a single task that we are adding to the tasks here to our state. And the previous is just the previous value when we update tasks with set tasks. All right. Now we need to fix this on add inside task form. So let's open task form and let's see. First we need to add this here on add, and now we need to run this as a function when we submit this form. So let's do on submit, and we get an event variable here that we can use, and we can just run on add with now we want to run it with the task name, as remember. So let's do just task name like this, and now let's see if I add something, test. Okay, I don't see the text, but we'll fix it now actually. Let's go quickly to app CSS and input. Let's put color to white. So now I see this, and if I hit enter to add it, nothing changes because inside our app.js, we are not listing our tasks. We are just showing this empty test task. So let's map through our tasks map, and for each task, I'll put the extra parentheses here, and I'll print a task like this. Now let's see if I do test, enter, oops, something has changed. Our page has reloaded, and that's because when we submit our form, HTML will try to send it as a request by default. So let's add a function here inside our task form called handle submit, and we will get an event object here. And instead of doing this, we can do handle submit with this event, and because the param is the same here, event, we can do just handle submit without any parentheses. And now first we want to do event prevent default, so it will not try to send by default with HTML and separate request. And now we just want to run on add. Sorry, it should be on add with task name. Let's see if I put test, enter, we have test task. Let's do 1, 2, 3. It's adding tasks, but it's not correct name, but we'll fix it. But first, if I add a task, I want to also clear this. So after we added the task, let's also do set task name to empty string. And now if I add test 1, 2, 3, 4, it cleared this. But now the tasks are still just test task. So let's go back to app. And as you can see, we have just this component without any information from this task object. So to put all this information to this, we get name and done to false by default. We can do spread operator here, and we can do just task. And now every object information that we got inside task, we are passing it to the task component. So inside the task, we can grab both name and done. And now we can change this test task to name. And now as you can see, it changed to test 1, 2, 3, and test 1, 2, 3, 4. And what else? We need to change those checkboxes. So let's change checkboxes to done. So now let's refresh and let's add some more test 1. Yeah, and checkboxes are empty. And now let's maybe fix that we will save our tasks to local storage. Because now, as you can see, if I refresh the app, everything disappears because our state is not saved anywhere. It's just inside JavaScript. It's like a variable. So every time you close the app, it will disappear. Or if you refresh, it will disappear because it's only inside the memory of the computer. So let's do something like this. We want that when tasks changes, we want to save it to local storage. So to monitor changes on a variable or on a state with inside React, we will use useEffect. And now we have two params here. The first is a function. I will put an array function. For now, it will be empty. And the second is array of dependencies. And our only dependency will be tasks. So let's put it here. And now inside this arrow function, we want to tell what should happen when the tasks change. So what do we want to do? We want to save tasks to local storage. So let's do local storage, set item. The name of the item will be tasks and the value will be just tasks. But here the problem is we can't just put an object, JavaScript object into local storage. It needs to be a string. So I will serialize it with JSON. So let's do JSON stringify, and here we just put tasks. Now if I save, let's open console here. I will open application and let's open local storage. I can remove all of this. Let's refresh. You see, we have tasks. That is just an empty array. If I put test 1, enter, we get our first task. I will make it a little bigger. So we have our first task with name test 1 and done to false. So yeah, now when we refresh our app, it still disappears. Why? Because even if we had this in local storage, we didn't save it to, we didn't read it first, but instead we just run this local storage set item, and on the beginning our tasks is just an empty array. So even if we have something inside local storage, we are just updating this without reading if something exists there. So on the beginning of our app, we need to read if we have something in local storage first. So how we can fix it? Well, let's see. This thing runs even on the beginning, because on the beginning tasks is set to an empty array. So that's why even if we had something in the local storage, it updated these tasks inside local storage to an empty array. So here, maybe inside, let's change the default on our state to null. And here we can check if tasks is actually a null. Then we know it's like a first render of our application, and we will try to read local storage first. So I will do alert read here. Let's see if it runs. No, this didn't work, and it didn't render either, because then we tried to do tasks map, and we can't map when it's a null. Let's put it back as an array, and let's see. maybe instead of checking if it's null, let's check if it's empty. So let's check that tasks length is 0. Now we get read here. Right. So now we can read this from here, and otherwise, so else we can set tasks, or maybe we don't even need to do this else. Right. So now we could actually read the tasks here from local storage, but then we could get a problem. Why? Because we would read from local storage, and here we would set the tasks. And the problem is, let's say we don't have any tasks inside local storage. So we'll try to set tasks as an empty array, and this will run again this, our useEffect, and it will be still length of 0, and it will still try to read the local storage, and the value will be just an empty array, and will run over and over and over. So this will actually not work. So instead we want to run just a function that will run when we just first open our app. And for this we will actually use effect. So I'll put an arrow function here, but with a second param as just an empty parenthesis. And because of this, our arrow function will run only when we first render our app, so when our app mounts. So I will do alert, and you can see test, and it runs only once when we render our app, and it will not run again if we update our tasks. So here inside we can actually read our local storage. So we'll do local storage, get item, and I'll do tasks. And now because we have stringified with JSON, we need to unstringify. So let's do const tasks equals JSON parse to unstringify like this. And now when we have our tasks, we just need to set them with set tasks. So let's do set tasks and tasks. I'll add some spaces here so it'll be easier to read. And now let's see. I'll refresh. Let's do test 1. We have it here. If I reload, we don't have it. Let's see how it looks like inside our application and local storage. It's empty. Let's put test 1, enter. We have it. But if I refresh, it disappears. Why? Because when we first run our app, as you remember, this runs even on the beginning when tasks is set to empty array. So then we don't want to update our local storage when this is empty. So we can do just if tasks length is 0, then we will just return here. So this code will not run. Now let's save. Let's do test 1. We have it. Let's do refresh, and we still have it. Yeah, so this works. Let's put test 2, and we have 2 tasks. Now the next part will be that when we click on the checkbox, it should update this done to true and make the checkbox checked. So let's go to our task, and let's see. We have this done, but we are passing to checkbox, and we are using this as a default checked. But actually inside our checkbox, we can change it to get rid of this state. We don't need it. We can make it as a controlled component, and we can just do checked here. That will be default, will be false. And let's rename it here as well to just checked. And we'll add on click here. And on click, let's say it will just run an arrow function that will say clicked. Now let's put this on click inside our checkbox. So let's put it on this div on click, and it comes from a property here on click. So we need to add it here, and now we can put it just on click. So now if we click, it shows clicked. Right. Now let's go back to our task. So we are telling to the checkbox if it should be checked or not by passing this done. That is true or false. But now we have only on clicked that, well, it just shows an alert. Instead, we want to update this done to the opposite. So if it's true, we want to change it to false. And if it's false, we want to change it to true. And we want to update this local storage as well. So basically our task needs to inform our app. So inside our app, let's see, we have this task here. Because it needs to inform our app and tasks here, we need to add here another property that will be on, let's say it will be on click or maybe on toggle. And on toggle, we will have a new done that will be passed to our app. So on toggle, we want to update our task. So let's add a function here that will be named update task done. So we will only update done on a specific task, and we need to know what is the number of this task. If it's the first task or the second, we could pass a name, but I think the index is would be better because names can repeat, but indexes cannot. So we will have task here, but we also have an index. So it's 0 for the first task and 1 for the second task and so on. So now when we toggle this task, we will run update task done. And let's put that the first param will be index of the task and the second value will be this past done. All right. So now we'll add it here and will be task index and done. We can call it new done. And now we can update our tasks here inside our state. So let's do set tasks. We get previous value. And what do we want to do? Let's first create a copy of this previous tasks array. So let's do const new tasks. It will be array of previous tasks. And now inside new tasks, we want to update task of this item and change it to this new done. So new tasks of task item. We want to change the done to be new done, and we need to return it. It will be set on tasks. So let's do just return new tasks. Right, and this on toggle is not implemented inside task. So let's go inside, and here let's do on toggle. And this on toggle needs to be run when we click the checkbox. So instead of this alert, let's do on toggle. And well, let's see what type of information we need to pass. We need to pass this new done. So the new done will be actually the opposite of done. So we can do just opposite of done. So if done is true, this will be false. If this is false, then question mark of this will be true. Now let's save. And now let's see what happens if I click this. It's selected. If I refresh, it's still selected. That's awesome. Let's try again. I will select both. I refresh and it's still selected. And as you can see, it has this done true. So everything works. Actually, I will quickly just update those checkboxes to make them a little prettier. So let's go to app CSS. And for our SVG, let's add the fill color of this React blue. So we'll put it here. And well, let's click. Yeah. Instead of this checkbox, I will actually change this to this one. Copy SVG. Let's go quickly back to checkbox. And unchecked is this one. So I will replace it like this. But now we need to also get rid of this comment as always. So I will select it and remove. Now let's see how it looks like. That's beautiful. Let's quickly go back and let's increase the margin from the right side to 6 maybe. Yeah, that's perfect. Maybe brighter text here. So let's do DDD. Yeah, that looks really nice. So now if I refresh, it stays. All right, and now if I click on this, it also adds as test free. It would be nice to add an extra line through if it's done. So let's say we'll have an extra class name of it on the task if it's done. So let's go to task, and here we have class names. First, let's replace this to a string like this. It will be just task, but we will also add an extra class name. So let's add space here, depending if it's done or not. So if done, then I will add the done as a string. Otherwise, not done, not done. Why not? Or maybe nothing. Now let's go back to app CSS, and for a div with class name task and class name done, we want to change opacity, let's say, to 50%. So it's gray, and let's also add line through. So let's do text decoration, line through. Yeah, so we have this line through on the task name. Maybe we can make it even darker, 0.4, maybe 0.3. Yes, we can add more. Test 3, test 4. Yeah, everything works, and I can uncheck it. Yeah, that's beautiful. We can add some animation even. So on this div task, we can add transition on opacity, 0.3 seconds, and linear function here. So yeah, so it dims. Yeah, I think that's better. We can even do this line animated. I will show you how. Let's go to task, and this task name sits just here. So let's add a span element here. So the task name sits inside span element. Now we can get rid of this line through, and instead, let's say that div task, it sits, the task name sits inside the span. So I will actually do that. It will have an extra element here that will be, let's say, for now, content test. Let's see. Yeah, so it says test, and content will be empty. The display will be block of this element. Let's put width of 1 pixel and the height of also 1 pixel. The background color, let's put it the same as the text color. So it put the DDD. So now, as you can see, we have those dots here, but we want to make those as lines. So instead of 1 pixel, let's do 100%. So now it's a line, but we want to position it here in the middle. So on our task, let's do, not task, on our div task span, let's do position relative. So we can position based on this span element. And now here we can add position absolute. And from the top, let's go 10 pixels. Yes, that's better. But here should be width of 0. And only if div task has class name of done, then this extra before on the span element should be width of 100%. So now we have those lines here. Let's make them maybe wider. Yes. And now to make them animated, we can animate the width actually. I'll make the height back to 1. And let's say that we'll have a transition here. Transition on the width, and it will be 0.3 seconds and linear animation. Now nothing have changed. Oh no, it actually did. So as you can see, the line grows. We can make it faster, 0.1 second. Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so now our app works, and it saves to local storage. We can add some more features. Like for example, let's maybe fix, so we can, so we'll have a counter here above about how many tasks are done. So let's go to app.js. Let's scroll to the top and, well, not here. Here above the form, let's put an H1 and let's say it will be 0 of 10 complete, something like this. And now instead of those zeros and tens, we will put a number here of how many is complete and how many in total. So how we can find how many is complete. Let's put it as a variable here. Number complete. It will be from all tasks. We want to filter them. And for each task, let's do just T. We want to filter if it's done. So T done. And this will return a new array of just done tasks. And we don't want an array. We just want to length on this array. So here we can just put number complete now. So 2 of 10 complete. Now let's fix this 10. Let's do const number total. It will be just tasks length. So now instead of this 10, let's do number total. 2 of 5 complete. 3 of 5 complete. Yeah, everything works. If I refresh, still 2 of 5 complete. Let's add some styling. So for this H1, I just want to add text align center. And Well, another cool feature to make it your own to-do list that is unique. It's not the same that you can find on other tutorials. Let's add a custom message here, maybe below, depending on how many tasks are done. So let's go to app.js and let's say we will have a h2 here and we will have a message. Now it's not defined, but let's define it here. Message, it will be, let's put test for now. So we have a test as a message, but instead we want it to be based on the number or the percentage of the done tasks. So if nothing is done, I want it to say do at least one. Or if every task is done, let's say congrats and confetti. So maybe instead of message as a string, we can put it as a function, so it will be easier to use. So let's do function get message, yes, and here I will remove this message, and here I will do get message with parentheses because we are calling this function. For now, it will just return keep it going as a default. And I will also center this. So both h1 and h2 should be centered. And let's add emoji of this muscle, this bicep. And well, let's see. Now we have this number complete and number total. We can actually move it above so we can use it inside get message. And now I want to change this message based on not how many is done, but how much based on the total. So percentage of done. So I can actually do const percentage here, and I can calculate number of complete divided by number total. So number complete divided by number total. Right, and I can do times 100, so I'll have a percentage from 0 to 100. And now let's say if it's 0, so let's say percentage is 0. Let's do return, and it will say try to do at least 1, and the pray icon, pray emoji. Yes. So now it says try to do at least 1 because we don't have any done. And let's also do if everything is done. So if percentage is 100, then let's return nice job for today and the holiday type of poem. Let's put this. Now if we select all of those, it says nice job for today. So that's really cool. So we can add more messages if you want. Like if it's only 1/4, you can do keep it going or continue, or I don't know. Well, another cool feature will be to remove all the tasks. So let's see, we've done everything for today, but well, we want to add a new task. Let's say new task, and well, we want to remove all those that we have already done from yesterday, let's say. So let's go to our task, and I will add a new button here maybe. Let's put it as a button, and this button will be a trash icon, let's say. So I will search here on found awesome trash, and let's take this one. I will copy SVG. I will put it here. Again, I will just remove this HTML comment so it will work here in our React app. Okay, now we need to style it. So let's go to CSS, and our task is display flex, so it's in line, but we need to change that the middle element will grow and push this icon to the end. So this middle element is the span, so we can just add grow here to 1. Oops, sorry, it should be flex grow. And now we can see it goes all the way here. But now, because the span is this long, our line is this long. So I think that inside task, instead of having just span, let's put this span inside the div. Well, now it doesn't work because we put this flex grow on the span, but span is inside this center element, our center div. So let's first put a name on this div. Class name, it will be, let's say, task name. Now we can do task name on this div and it will have flex grow. Right. But now let's style this trash icon. So do we have any class name on the trash icon? No, we don't. So let's add button class name trash. Trash will be enough. Okay, now let's do button trash. And let's get rid of everything. Background none, border none, and let's change the color of the SVG icon. So let's do button trash, and SVG inside should be a color of fill color should be like gray. So let's do maybe AAA. Yeah, I think this will work. We can actually maybe try with red, dark red. Let's try with red. Now I think gray works. Great, AAA. Yes, and maybe let's make it smaller. Let's do height of 14 pixels. Yes, this will work. Maybe we can make it even darker. So let's do AA8, so it's not that visible. Yeah, I think this will work. Now our trash icon is not in the middle, it's more to the top, but we can fix it inside our div task where we have flex. We can have align items center. And now everything is more to the middle. Let's see, except this div checkbox. The checkbox inside is not in the middle, so let's fix it. And do we have a div with class name checkbox here inside CSS? No, we don't. So let's add it maybe here, div checkbox, and let's put display of type flex, so we can do align items center. Yeah, now everything is aligned to the middle, I think. Let's see also with this trash icon. Well, I don't think it's aligned to the middle, so even let's add the display flex. Yeah, now it is to the middle. Let's see. Yeah, it looks fine. Let's put also cursor pointer on this trash button. So we have this hand icon when we hover. And now let's add what happens when we click on this trash icon. So let's go back to task. And when we click on this checkbox, you can see that we have this extra property on the task on toggle. And I think we need to add another on delete or maybe on trash. And now when we click on this one, let's just run our on click and then let's do on trash. That will be run when we click on the trash. Now we need to implement this on trash where we render our task. So inside app.js, let's scroll. We have this on toggle, but we don't have on trash. So let's add on trash. And now what do we want to do? We want to remove it from local storage and from our state. So let's do function remove task. And we just need a task index. So we want to know if it's first task or the last one, if it's task with index 0 or index, I don't know, it will be 5. So let's see. Let's first fix this remove task. So we just need to update tasks inside state. So let's do set tasks. And here we have a function and we should always use the previous value and return a new value. So we want to return the previous value, the previous tasks, except the task with this task index. We can maybe remove it, rename it to index to remove. So it will be easier to know what kind of index it is. So we want to return the old tasks, except we want to filter out the task with this index. So when we do filter, we can use a function that will have both the value, task info or task object, and then here we would have if it's done and the name, but we also have the index here that we can use. And we just need to check if the index is we need to compare this index when we filter the previous with index to remove. And to keep it, we want to make it so it will return true here. So we want to check if it's different than index to remove. And here we can just do return on the filter. Now it says an error because we have this empty on trash. But well, let's fix that. To make this thing shorter, we can just remove those curly brackets, return and curly brackets here. Instead, we have just index is different than index to remove. Now let's fix this on trash. We will just do arrow function, and I think it was remove task. Here we need to put the index of the task. We have it here where we are mapping our tasks. So now if I save, let's see what happens if I click this. It has been removed. If I remove test1, it has been removed. And I did 3 of 4. Yeah. If I remove this one, the only one that's not done, that's 3 of 3 complete. Nice job for today. So that's really awesome. So now we can even remove tasks. Let's add another one, test 1, 2, 3. And well, I think I can add another function to another functionality to actually even edit the task names here. So let's say that when we click on the task name, it will change to an input. So let's go back to our task and let's see. The task name is actually a div here, but instead of having a div, we want to change it to be a form when we click on it. So let's say that we will have a state here called edit mode. And let's do set edit mode, and will be use state, default will be false. And well, when we click on this div, so let's do on click, it will toggle this edit mode. So let's do arrow function, it will run set edit mode, and on the previous value, it will just return the opposite. So question mark previous. Now, here we have this span, here we have this task name, but let's see. Let's say that this div with task name will be rendered only if edit mode is false. So if not edit mode, then, so let's do like this, parenthesis, and let's put it inside. And let's now add for edit mode, and here end, parenthesis, and we'll put a form. We don't need this. We just need an input with the current task name. Let's put the value here, name. Now let's see if I click on this. Well, it's now changed to an input. And that's really cool. So that is really cool. Now it will be cool also to change what happens if we change the name. So now, as you can see, I cannot type on this because the value is always the name. But I want to notify our app from this task component when I change the name. So let's do on change. It will run a function. I put it on a separate line and we get an event, and we need to notify our app so it will give back our new name. So let's do on rename. Let's say we'll have a property that will be named like this, that we will run here on rename, and we will just put the new name that we get inside inputs, event target value. Now we need to implement on rename where we are rendering our task. So let's do on rename, and that's, remember, we get new name here from our task. And what do we want to do? We want to, for the task with this index that we get from the mapping, we want to update the name. So that's quite easy. We just want to set tasks with, let's grab previous values, or maybe let's better put it as a function rename task, so it will be cleaner. The code will be prettier. Rename task, we just need an index of the task and new name. And here we'll just run set task, we'll get the previous value, and we need to return the old tasks as a copy. I will just print it as a copy here, and this is now failing. Let's do that. It will run just rename task with this index and new name. But instead of returning just the same thing, we want to rename task of this index. So let's first create a copy. New tasks will be just a copy of previous tasks, but on the new tasks on this index, I want to change the name to new name, and I will return new tasks. So now I should be able to edit, and I am. But now I need to be able to get rid of this input without hitting enter and reloading this page. So let's go to task, and we have this form. Let's add on submit. We get an event, and we actually need to run two things here. First, we need to do event prevent default, and then we just need to disable this edit mode. Set edit mode to false, because we are changing the name as we edit here. So if I hit just enter, well, it's saved. It's saved as I type. So let's do like this. But let's style this input a little bit. So let's go to app CSS, and let's do div task input, and let's do border of let's say 2 pixels solid. Let's do 666, or maybe no, 777, something like this. Let's do border radius of maybe we can make it darker, 555. Yeah, border radius of 5 pixels. We can change the padding to just 0 pixels. Or maybe let's add 0 pixels on the top and the bottom, but 2 pixels on the sides. Yeah, maybe 2 pixels everywhere and 4 pixels on the sides. Yeah, this will work. We have this growing functionality on the div, so here, but we don't have it on the form. So let's see. We have here task name. We need to add it on div task, and form. Yeah. So now we have it. If you click enter, it's just saved. We can edit, test, renamed, enter, and it's done. We can edit even this one, test 43, enter. Yeah, everything works. We can mark it as done. This one too. Nice job for today. And well, and we can still delete tasks, and everything works. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the project. If you did, please click the like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. If you want me to do any other type of projects like this one, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I wish you a productive and pleasant day, and see you in the next video.